Hello again, YouTube. It's me, the Kaiju Corner. Sorry that this video took so long into October, but I've been a little busy, getting distracted, and also been a little lazy. I meant to actually put out several very short videos about various different kaijus and why they are creepy or spooky, just to kind of fit the Halloween atmosphere. But things happen. But with me finally getting around to putting out a video before Halloween is over, hopefully, I figured no better way than to start with a kaiju that's based on a classic horror movie monster, or just a horror monster in general, Frankenstein. But roll that intro. Did y'all like my special intro for October? Cost me $15. But I know several people will probably mention how Frankenstein was the scientist and not the monster. Well, normally that would be true, but in this case, based off the film Frankenstein Conquers the World, the character's name itself is Frankenstein. So from here on, we'll be referring to the monster itself as Frankenstein, or Frankie for short. Kaiju type. Frankenstein is a kaijin de kaiju that is based off the works of the author Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein. Agenda. At first, it is easy to believe that Frankenstein should be placed in the Destroyer's agenda, not out of a malicious nature, but because of the destruction and death he causes from being just too strong and too hungry. He has accidentally killed several people by collapsing parts of a building on them when he was hungry, as well as eating several people's livestock and pets. But deep in his heart, Frankenstein belongs in the Defender's agenda. Throughout his debut film, Frankenstein showed that he never meant to hurt others. He was either scared or hungry, and often thought with the simplistic way of a child. By not wishing to combat his human aggressors, fending off another giant monster that tried to eat them, saving the life of a man by carrying back to others, and sacrificing himself to ensure the death of the assaulting monster, Frankenstein displayed that he truly belongs in the Defender's agenda. Size. When it comes to size, Frankenstein, at the time of his death, in quotation marks, he was relatively small for a Kaiju. He stood around 20 meters tall and weighed around 200 tons. However, this was not his true size. Because of his condition, that we will discuss in a moment, Frankenstein never stops growing. If he had lived long enough, he would eventually tower over the likes of other kaiju, including Goji Earth. So while Baragon may have had an upper weight class to Frankenstein at the time of their fight, a few days later Frankenstein would have easily dwarfed him. Physiology. Frankenstein's physical appearance is a somewhat basic one, but he is meant to somewhat resemble the original creature from the novel. He is a large human with odd skin tone, well-pronounced forehead, and an unnatural set of green eyes. Frankenstein is not covered in scars or stitching marks indicating that he was made from multiple corpses, but this is because of the body he has in the film is not his original form. Thanks to another special quality of Frankenstein, every time he was killed, he would regrow a new body. Almost like being born, this new body would be free of lesions, scarring, and wounds. Abilities. Frankenstein is basically human. There is nothing monstrous about him except for his size and appetite. But by being basically human, he does have a highly formed brain, unlike most other giant monsters. This allows him to think critically instead of relying on mostly bestial or feral instincts like other kaijus that are mostly based around animals. Frankenstein was shown being able to understand and express complex emotions such as sadness and compassion. He displayed that he could make new clothing to fit his larger size, which, while simplistic and gave him a caveman like appearance, this showed that he could perform complex but delicate tasks, such as stowing. He also understood how to make use of traps, ambushes, tools/weapons, and strategy to overcome a foe that was physically larger and stronger than him. If Frankenstein could have been educated, his mental prowess could have been unlimited, just as any other humans can. Frankenstein was also extremely fast for a terrestrial kaiju. While other ground-bound kaiju typically rely on jumping or leaping for bursts of speed, Frankenstein is capable of sprinting with great stride. He was also remarkably light on his feet, which allowed him to hide and skulk behind enemies frighteningly well. Special qualities. Frankenstein has a couple of special features. The first special feature was his indestructible heart. His heart could not be destroyed by seemingly any means necessary. It survived being at ground zero of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. It also survived innumerable amounts of deaths and lynchings that Frankenstein endured from angry mobs and villagers. His heart ensures that Frankenstein will continue to live on, even without a body. Frankenstein's second notable trait pairs with his indestructible heart, which is his rapid regeneration. No matter what wound Frankenstein receives, whether disembowelment or dismemberment, Frankenstein will regrow the body part at a rapid rate until it matches his current body size. Which brings us to his third special quality, his endless growth. As long as Frankenstein continues to live and find sources of food, he will continue to grow even larger. At the time of his demise, he was relatively small when compared to other daikaiju, being dwarfed by Baragon. However, if he had lived as stated before, he could dwarf Earth Goji. Frankenstein's last special quality is hinted at in his film, but doesn't become clear until his technical sequel film, War of the Gargantuas. In this film, two pieces of the original Frankenstein survived the battle with Baragon and managed to regenerate into their own forms, one becoming good and the other evil. So not only can Frankenstein regenerate any part of his body that he requires, but if decimated, he could reform into multiple versions of himself. I would label this quality as regenerative cloning, but is really just an extension of his rapid regeneration ability, showing just how determined his body is to being reformed. Ranking. Now comes the kaiju ranking. For good old Frankie, I think I'll have to place him as D. As I've said before, a low ranking does not mean that he is a terrible monster. But for Frankie, he's not even an original creation. He was based directly off the works of another. His design is simple, and his powers are relatively basic. If Frankie could have made it up a couple weight classes, he could monster mash with the best of them. But he is as plain as making an animal big and calling it a kaiju. Hint, the giant Gila monster. But this is spooky time, so Frankie gets another rank score. The spooky score. Now, Frankie will be judged on a scale of 1 to 5 skulls, from not very spooky slash spoopy to frighteningly dreadful slash horrific. For this, I will take into consideration all of the information available about Frankenstein. On the spook scale, Frankie receives a 5 out of 5 skulls. Horrific. It's not his design that's so scary about Frankie, even though his looks would repulse many people. It's his capabilities. He is an indestructible monster that will regenerate indefinitely, even if it means forming multiple bodies, and has no limits to how large he can be. Seemingly only limited by food and things that like the height of the atmosphere, but living in a world where other giant monsters and large animals like whales exist, so sources of food are not an issue for him. Well, thank you all for watching my video. If you enjoyed my content, please make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for future videos. Until next time, see you later.